Hey guys, this is Mr. C, and in this video we're going to be looking at some problems where we have to simplify some algebraic expressions using the order of operations and combining like terms and removing parentheses. So I've selected some of the problems specifically because these are the most representative problems on EOC tests and unit tests, ACT, things like that. So let's go through them one at a time and let's see how it works. The first thing you need to know is in this expression right here, it's called an algebraic expression. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and then terms are separated by addition or subtraction, pluses and minuses. The number in front of the variable is called the coefficient. If there's no variable, it's called a constant. And if you combine like terms are terms that have the same variable with the same exact exponent on that variable. It doesn't really matter what the coefficient is because we're just going to combine those, but we do look at the variables. And so if I look at this expression here with 4 terms, I'm going to look at the 2x and the negative 4x. And what I usually do is I put a line underneath the like terms as I go. And so that kind of helps me focus. So I have 2x's and minus or negative 4x's here. So to combine 2 and negative 4, and I don't like to use the word add because then people start writing 6 down. If I combine 2 and negative 4, the result would be negative 2x. Okay? Then I start looking at my other variables. I do have a 3y sitting right there. And again, I put 2 lines underneath that. So I'm only looking at this one. That's the only term I have in this whole thing that has a y with it. And so I'm just going to put down plus 3y here. And then if I look at the constant, there's only one constant in the whole thing, and that's just a 1. And it's plus 1. And so here's my final answer. One thing to note, when you get done combining the like terms, don't take these 3 terms that are not like terms and start putting them together because you can't. And so you can't say, oh, this is going to be 1xy. You can't do that. They're just going to mark it wrong. Okay, and you can't add this one and this one and this one. You just have to leave this as your final answer, and then that's it. And that's the goal of combining like terms and simplifying. There weren't any parentheses in here, so I didn't have to worry about that for that particular problem, but there will be for some other ones, like this one. All right, so here we have 4 minus, and then this 2 is being multiplied by everything in here. So there are no like terms in here, 6x, 3y, minus 5, those are all different terms. But I do need to distribute before I even get started here. And so, like I said before, part of simplifying is removing parentheses first. So the 4 minus has to stay. I cannot tell you how many students over the past have taken that 4 minus 2 and they write 2 right there. You can't do it. That's not the order of operations. Okay, you have to do this first, parentheses first. So negative 2 times 6 is negative or minus 12x. Negative 2 times 3 would be a minus 6y. And a negative 2 times negative 5 would be a positive 10. Now I'm going to have to be real careful when I do this so I don't make any mistakes. So I'm looking at this now and I'm seeing 4 terms. These 2 don't have anything like them, but I do have 2 constants. So 4 and 10, I can combine those together. We usually put the constant at the end of the expression. So I'm going to write negative 12x minus 6y, and then these 2 guys, 10 and 4. If I combine those, that would be 14. And then that's it. All 3 of those terms are not like terms, and so I just have to leave it. Okay, here's an example with no parentheses, but I do have an extra square on a couple of these terms, so I'm going to have to be careful. So let's look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. I've got a 5x squared and a 2x squared. And notice how when I underline it, I take the sign in front. So I'm careful of considering that when I combine these coefficients together. So 5 and a positive 2 makes 7x squared. Okay. I have a negative x and a positive 7x, and that's going to combine to make positive 6x. So plus 6x. Okay, so I'm looking, and the only constant I have in this whole thing is negative 1 or minus 1. So I can just write minus 1 at the end, and then I'm done with that one. So again, no big deal. Okay, here's one where I've got two sets of parentheses. And so what I like to do is go ahead and just take care of these as I go here. So I'm going to distribute that 3, and then I'm going to distribute that minus 2. Okay, so let's take a look and see what this is. 3x, okay, 3 times 2 is 6, so that's done. Now a negative 2 times x is going to be a minus 2x, and we can think of negatives and minus signs as the same thing because that's basically how they behave. And negative 2 times negative 8 would be a positive 16. Okay, so now let's take a look at this. 4 terms. I've got 3x and a negative 2x. Well, if I combine those, that would just give me a 1x. I have a 6 and a 16. And if I combine those, I would have 22, and it is positive. And then that would be my final answer for that one. You are going to get some with fractions, so let's see how we handle fractions. All right, we are going to have to distribute. So let's distribute this one first, and let's see what happens. 3 halves times 4. Let's think of it this way. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And so we're going to get 6x for that one. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. Divided by 2 would be negative 9. So minus 9y. There are other ways you could do that. You could cancel the 4 and the 2 and cancel the 6 and the 2. But the way that comes to my mind first, the way I always do it is the way I just did it. I'm about to do it again. So I'm going to distribute this 2/3 to both of these coefficients. And so let's see what happens. 12 times 2 is 24. Divided by 3 is 8. So plus 8x. And now I have 9 times 2 is 18, and it's negative. Divided by 3 would be 6. So that would be a minus 6y. And my goal here is to pay attention to what I'm doing every step so I don't make a silly mistake. All right, so let's take a look. I have 6x and 8x. So to me, that would be 14x's altogether. And then I have a negative 9y and a negative 6y. So if I combine those, I would have a total of negative 15y. And that would be my final answer for that one. So fractions really aren't that big of a deal. All right, let's check out this one. Again, I'm going to distribute because I have parentheses. Distribute here, distribute here. So let's take a look. 5 times 1 is 5. Divided by 3 does not cancel. So I have to leave it as 5 over 3 with an x on the side. I usually put my x on the side like that. 2 times 1 is 2. Divided by 3. There's no variable here. So plus 2/3 here. And then this plus 2/3 is just kind of sitting there. It's plus 2/3 x at the end. All right, so I've got a 5/3 x and a 2/3 x. When you add these two fractions together, they have a like denominator. So 5 plus 2 is 7, 7/3 x. And this constant right there has no other like terms, so it just goes right after it, plus 2/3. And there's nothing else you can do. Please, please do not try to add these together, combine these two terms somehow, because they are not like terms and you cannot combine them whatsoever. So just leave that as your final answer. All right, now we've got a couple variables going on. Let's see how this works. We're going to distribute like we do when we have parentheses. Okay, so 6x plus 6xy. Okay, now let's distribute over here. Negative 5y or minus 5y, same thing. And then a negative 5 times 2 is still negative 10. So minus 10 xy. All right. Now, it really doesn't matter how you take these terms out of here and combine them, as long as they're in some order where you combine them correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first look at this 6x, and there's only one of them. So I'm just going to write 6x. Then I'm going to look at these right here, these two, because they both have an xy on them, and they're both to the first power. So negative 10 and 6, that makes negative 4xy. This term, with just the y there, is all by itself, so minus 5y. All right, so now I'm going to consider that to be a correct answer. I'll mark that correct all day. What if a student decides to do this? 6x minus 5y minus 4xy. Is that correct? Well, that's correct. You just have the terms in a different order, and you did keep the same sign in front of it as you switch them. That's fine. You can write it like this, or you can write it like this, either one. Now, if this is a multiple choice test, you wouldn't see both of these answers on the test because they're both correct, and you can't say one is more correct than the other. So a multiple choice test would either have one of these on there and then 3 or 4 wrong answers. So either one of these, if it was open-ended, would be a correct answer. It's no problem. Teachers aren't going to mark that wrong. All right, so let's try this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and distribute, because that's the first thing that pops into my mind here. So x times x is x squared. It's definitely not 2x, because you're not adding them, plus 2x. Now, notice when I multiply these, the coefficient goes in front of the variable. Don't write x2, and I know students that do that, and that's kind of a bad habit to get into. So we're going to put the 2 in front of the x here. Okay, these guys, nothing's happening with them, so we're just going to rewrite them like this. All right, now let's take a look. Okay, let's start with our highest power of x. I've got an x squared and a 2x squared. Okay, so that's going to make 3x squared when you combine those. A positive 2x and a negative 1x are going to make just positive 1x. So 3x squared plus 1x, and that is your final answer. And that one is done. Okay, here's one with 2 parentheses. So let's take a look at this one. We're going to distribute. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3 minus 3x. Okay, now let's do this one. All of this 2x here is going to get multiplied or distributed to both of these. So 2x times x is plus 2x squared. 2x times 1 would be just plus a 2x. All right, so now let's combine like terms. X squared and a positive 2x, again, make 3x squared. A negative 3x and a positive 2x, well, that would just be a negative 1x. So what was different from this? Why did I choose this one to do? Well, because here you have a 2x sitting there, and students do have the tendency to not distribute this correctly. And so I just wanted to show you this one to kind of give you another example of how to handle one like that, because those are very common, especially when you get to quadratics in Algebra 2 and at the end of Algebra 1. All right, so let's take a look at this one. Looks simple, right? This 4/3 x is sitting there. We have to distribute the 2/3. So let's do that. So we're going to rewrite the 4/3 x. We didn't do anything with it. Negative 2/3 x, or minus 2/3 x. Right there. And then 2/3 times 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Divided by 3 is 2. So this whole product is just going to be minus 2. And why is it minus? Because you had a negative times a positive, and that's going to result in a negative. Now, we have 3 terms. These two have an x, and so I'm going to combine those first. 4 minus 2 is 2. So I'm looking at 2/3 x. The minus 2 here for the constant has no other like term, so I'm just going to leave it, and then that's my final answer for that one. All right. So, can this get any harder? Not really. You just get more terms, fractions maybe, but then you can get some decimals too. And so if you get decimals, that's no big deal. We just need to know how to multiply these guys out. So we're going to distribute like we always do. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is 0.2 times 0.8x. And it's negative here, and that's a plus positive 0.8x. Well, this times this is 0.16. And it's negative. So negative 0.16x for that. Okay, so now you have a 5 times 0.2. So if you multiply 5 times 0.2, I mean, you think about it, 0.2 is 1/5. So if you multiply 1/5 times 5, you're going to get 1. And so when you multiply these guys, it's just going to be negative 1. And that's it. plus 1.5x at the end. Don't forget that. And now we're just going to take our terms and we're going to combine some like terms. So now we have 1.5, and then you're going to basically subtract 0.16 from that, and you should get 1.34. And it's positive because this number is bigger than this one. So when you combine these, the outcome is going to be 1.34x. The minus 1 is a constant, and there's no other constants, so you just put a minus 1 right there. You don't have to turn this back into a fraction, because usually, I mean, like 99% of the time, when your problem is presented to you in decimals, then your answer as a decimal is fine, and that's usually what people are going to expect. So no worries there. So simplifying algebraic expressions, not too hard. A little bit of fraction work we had to do, but I think we can handle that. Remember to like and share and subscribe to my channel, and we will see you guys later. Bye.